The first story has my uncle working this morgue in, I think, California. He was deputy chief coroner of San Francisco, just not at this time yet, so he's in some podunk town when the bodies are getting stacked up. Apparently something happened and it caused a surge of deaths in the little town. Kind of fucked up, but so is life. Now this town's morgue was tiny, definitely not built for mass casualties. This was probably in the 70s or 80s too. The place only had 2 or 3 cold storage slabs. So as per my uncle, those up the pecking order from my uncle, stored the bodies upstairs on gurneys. When my uncle was done with the bodies on the slabs, he would go upstairs to retrieve the next poor fuck. Now here's the kicker. It was dark as shit up there. No light. But there were windows, and it's Cali-fucking-fornia. Why with windows was there no light? Flies. Fucking flies. They were so thick on the windows, they literally blocked out the sunlight. My uncle didn't work there long after that, but by God, he was a man of solid work ethic. Second story. My dad would help my uncle out on certain jobs. This was at a different mortuary, mind you, and in the 70s or so. So the local retirement home gives the place a call and says, "We've got another one," or some shit like that. So my uncle asked my dad to come help him get a body from the home. My dad says okay, and they hop in the coroner vehicle and arrive at the home. They walk into the room, and on one bed lies a motionless individual, and on the other, of 2 beds in the room, another motionless individual. They grab one of them, as per what they've been told, I imagine, and begin rolling her out the door, when suddenly the caretaker comes barreling out of the joint screaming, "It's not her! She's still alive!" They grabbed the wrong person. The one they grabbed was still alive, and the one on the other bed was the dead one. To be fair though, my uncle did mention that back in the day, and I imagine it occurs today as well, doping the living shit out of the elderly to make them sleep all day until they're dead was a thing that happened. So differentiating a living, albeit comatose person from a dead one was really hard until they could do the official time of death test at the mortuary. I guess there was really no need back in the day. Man, people must have lived by the seat of their fucking pants back then. To be clear though, as I've basically shown my uncle in a terrible light, he was a great person. The dude was stoic, wise, and definitely a lover of many women. Dude liked his gals, man. He'd call out bullshit. Definitely, he would fit in a man's man category, albeit if he were still alive. And for the record, yes, he chose his own personalized mortician work for himself after death. He was ill and knew it was coming, so he made pretty personalized plans. Extra large casket, no shoes on him, and not to be embalmed. I guess his reasoning was that, what dead guy needs shoes? The extra large casket wasn't because he wanted to be comfortable. He was a very broad-shouldered individual. As for the lack of embalming, he wanted to return to the earth as fast as possible. I spent some time picking up bodies for the medical examiner. There are many stories, some of my own and some those who I worked with. One which is usually popular is that of a woman who died on her own in the reservation town. We arrived and the cop on the scene was quite disgusted with the place. He was looking forward to be deployed back to Afghanistan to get away from this town. The house when we arrived was an older house with several stories. The fence outside had been driven through by a car at some point. It was a night, of course. We entered the house and it was a complete mess. She was obviously a bit of a hoarder. I've seen much worse hoarders in this job, but she was on her way there. There was stuff piled everywhere. You couldn't tell what the floor was actually covered in because of all the garbage and paper and stuff ground into the floor. Probably hardwood underneath as it felt so fairly solid, but tough to say for sure. The second floor was up a spiral staircase and she was upstairs. Before we went up there, the cop told us that the dogs had got her a little bit. We worked our way up the spiral staircase to the door that he had indicated she was behind. When we opened the door, there was a body sitting in an office chair facing the door. However, it was a skull on top of a body. The dogs had eaten all of the skin off of her head. They also ate her breasts, and the implants from her breasts were on the floor. She had several small dogs. They had started eating each other before her. So there was bones from at least one, probably 2 dogs scattered around. She had died and was not able to feed the dogs, obviously. So they turned on each other and then her. The guy I was with started freaking out a little bit. It was a fairly disgusting sight, well beyond the average call that we went to. We were trying to figure out how to get her out of the chair. She was decomposed, of course, so she was covered in blisters that bodies get covered in as they decompose. We have to gather as much of the body as we can, so he grabbed her implants and what was left of her scalp with the hair attached off the floor. You don't want to pop those blisters if you can avoid it. They are very putrid when they leak out. In my partner's state of not knowing what the hell to do with her, he decided that the easiest way to get her out of the chair was to kick the chair out from under her. So he did. She came crashing to the floor and the blisters burst. It was now a horrible mess of oozing pus. We had our portable stretcher, as obviously we aren't going to bring the one with wheels up the spiral staircase. We don't generally bring that up staircases at all, really. We set up the body bag and loaded her in. Of course, some of the fluids and whatnot got on the outside of the body bag. We loaded her onto the stretcher and carried her out of the house. She stank up the minivan all the way back to the city. It was winter and quite cold out, but we had to drive with all the windows down to try and survive the putrid odor. I can't explain why that happened, only that for some of us the paranormal is our normal. Things moving without regular means, it happens. I try to rule out why. Sometimes I can, but sometimes there is no explanation that can satisfy. Background info. While I was in college, I kept a tank of guppies in my dorm. I figured they were bored, living their whole life in their tank, and made an effort to entertain them. I taught them little games like tag, talked to them so they knew they were loved. My roommate even practiced her guitar in the room next to them and made up songs she sang to them. Couldn't have any other pet, so I spent a lot of time with them. I think they loved us back as we socialized with them every day. And unlike normal fish who would swim about ignoring the people in the room, as most fish don't have interaction and their actions normally didn't produce a result or reason to react, my fish would watch you and swim into the side of their tank closest to the person they saw moving about in the room. Anyway, the point I'm making is these fish weren't just a decorative object in the room. They were my pets, who were one of the few beings who were with me in the drastic change from my home to being all alone in the big city on my own, and the love was mutual. You don't know how many times I've kicked myself wanting to leave that lid on the dish they were in, so they didn't jump out. Their babies were all right though, and they grew into loved, smart, friendly fish. The weird thing you reminded me of, my second year of college, I was moving and brought my guppies. I took the lid off the Tupperware container they were in, afraid leaving the lid on would be bad, and filled their tank with fresh water, planning to move them after 24 hours. I came back after getting dinner, and the two adults had jumped out of the dish. I hadn't known them to do that. I guess they weren't happy not being in their tank. I had been gone so long that they had dried out where they fell on the floor. I felt awful because I had raised these fish from babies. When I picked up the female fish, I felt just like I'd grabbed a live wire. A jolt of energy, felt like electricity, zapped my fingers. It wasn't little like a static shock, but like when in science class our teacher had us touch a device that would shock us, our muscles involuntarily contracting. And it's strange, I swear, but it felt like she moved despite being dried out, and I thought dead I felt her move. It was so strange, but I'd seen videos of toads being rehydrated and put in water and still being alive. Maybe despite being dried out, she was somehow alive? I put her and the boy back in the dish and left them. They never moved again and were very much dead.